So I think I'm going to jump in and get started. So we currently have a Next.js 15 application connected to a convex database with the ability to create a course, specifically the course title. We've added the functionality to get a request and also create a request, or excuse me, the functionality to get, we've added the functionality to get courses and display them on the root route, and also create a course, which I've commented out, or not commented out, but just removed the component, but that's okay. We'll build that back in as we begin to set up the overall layout of the project. So with that, we'll just go ahead and jump in and get started with it. So we can remove the JavaScript to display the courses. And just to make sure this is working, we'll type home page, save and refresh. There we go. All right. So we have the ability to display the courses from the database with this query, but we won't worry about displaying those right now. Let's just focus on setting up the layout of the project. So I think what I'll do first is create a separate layout.tsx file so that we could bring in the header, the sidebar, and make sure that it's responsive once we shift to a smaller view. So within the main grouping, let's add a file named layout.tsx. And we'll need to pass in the children. So I'm going to copy that information from the layout.tsx and close it out. In the layout.tsx file, this is going to give us the ability to kind of customize the layout for the routes that share this layout. Because we already have a layout.tsx file, I just like to separate the two. One is for functionality that needs to be spread throughout the app, and the other one is for design. So this one will be for design, of course. And in order to, we'll need to export a layout from this component. So we'll use the RAFCE snippet. And inside of it, we'll pass in the code that we just copied, which is basically just setting the React node. And then within the div, let's replace layout with brackets and then children. Close that for now. And just to test it out, I'll add header above the children. So every route within that uses this layout should see the word header. We'll refresh the page. And we see header. And just to test it again, we'll go /dashboard/1. That's right. We set up some validation. Let's comment that out for right now. Comment this out. And we'll just say single course page. There we go. So we see the header on the dashboard/ID route. And if we go back to the home page, we see header there as well. Perfect. So we'll close this out for right now and go back to the, and looks like I opened the file inadvertently. No, I do not want to save it. So let's go ahead and begin by styling our application. And for this, it will be a responsive layout. And I like to use grid whenever I am building a responsive project. So within the initial div, let's add a class name of grid. Well, we'll start with setting the height and we'll set it to full, and then we'll add grid. We'll say that this is going to have a grid layout. And I like to build, I'll tell you what, let's make this smaller so we can see what we're actually building. Let's adjust our layout a little bit. There we go. And we can close out Sonner. All right, so I like to build my projects, especially if they're full stack and I'm actually using, and I want to have some design principles with it, starting with a mobile first approach. So we'll do the same thing, and that's the preferred method when building out Tailwind or using Tailwind as well. So we'll start by saying on small devices, I want to have 10 rows. So we'll say grid rows, and we'll set it to 10. We'll click save. And the reason I want to do this is because I want the header to take up one row, and I want the rest of the body to take up the remaining rows. So let's go ahead and begin to set up that layout now, but let's make sure this is working first. So I'll give this a background color of amber 200. And you see that it is taking up the entire screen, so that's perfect. And we can remove it for right now. Within the div, let's go ahead and build out the header first. So I'll add another div, and within this div, we'll just add header, and we'll click save. And we see that we now have the header at the top with a little bit of padding, and then we have the home page listed right beneath it. So within the div that we just added, the initial state of it is going to be block. But what we want to do is that we just want to set the amount of columns that we want this item to be displayed on. So, or excuse me, rows. But because we are starting with the mobile layout first, we don't necessarily have to worry about it. So let's go ahead and add the header component. So within the components directory, let's add a folder named header, and then in it, pass a file named header.tsx. I'll use the RAFCE snippet to create a header, a export default name header. And instead of it being lowercase, we should make these uppercase. And now let's go ahead and just import this inside of the layout. So at the top of the layout.tsx file, we'll type import, and we're importing the header, and it's coming from @/component/header. And then now let's remove the header that we just added, or the text that's within the div we just created. And let's bring in that header component. And click save. Looks like I clicked. There we go. Okay, so now we see the header is on screen, so that's perfect. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of style to our header so that it begins to look more like a header that we would be more familiar with. So inside of the header.tsx file, let's remove this div and replace it with the header tag. And inside of header, we'll give it a class name. And let's start with styling it. So we'll set the width to full. We'll set the height of it to full as well. Let's give it a border bottom. And I want to set the border, we're going to set the border color to neutral 100. And for the header, we want the initial state to be block, meaning that it's going to be a flex component. And then On large devices, we want it to be hidden because we're going to create a separate header, or excuse me, on large devices, we'll have the sidebar, and on small devices, we'll have the header where we can toggle the menu. So let's go ahead and make sure that this is given the behavior that we want. So I'll add header within the tag, click save, and we see header listed here on screen. And let's just make sure it is taking up the appropriate length or width and height. So we'll give it a background color just for testing and click save. And we see the header is taking up the entire width. And now let's just test it out to make sure that it is hidden on large devices. So I'll just use this tag and make it full screen. And now you see, we no longer see the header that we once had on screen. So the ability to hide and display the header based on the screen size is working. So I'll minimize the full screen for right now. Now let's go ahead and add a little bit more code within the header. So first, what we basically want to do is have a logo on the far left and a mobile menu on the far right. And that's all that we want in the header. We'll add additional items inside of each component. So inside of this div, we'll add a class name and give it a direction, or we'll set it to flex. We want the item centered. We'll set the spacing to be justified between. We want the width of the header to be, or this div to be full. And we also want to set the height to be full. And just so that it's not taking up, it's not on the edge of the browser, we'll give it some padding on the X of, we'll make it 6. Let's click save. And I know we don't see anything right now, but the first thing we're going to have, or we'll add, is a logo. And then on the far right, we'll have a mobile menu. We'll click save. And then now we see the logo on the far left and the mobile menu on the right. Perfect. I'll go ahead and remove the amber color because we don't need it. And let's see. I think we'll go ahead and work on building the logo first. So inside of the components directory, inside of UI, let's add a file named logo.tsx. And we'll use the RAFCE snippet to create a logo. Looks like I added an extra character to create a logo component that we can export. And we'll go back to the header, remove the div that is wrapping logo. And let's go ahead and import the logo first. And this should be coming from /UI/logo. And then let's bring in the component inside of the div of logo. Click save, and it should remain, yep, the same. We just now have lowercase characters versus upper. So this part is certainly optional. I'm just doing it just for some coding practice and just for the design of it, but you don't necessarily have to use this or as a logo. Just use whatever you want to use for your own individual project. But inside of the logo component, what we want to do is just basically have a icon that represents a book, and we'll have a span or 2 spans, one that is going to have study and the other span will hold buddy. They'll have different colors that'll represent the colors of our website. So nothing that's pertinent for the functionality, but just want to give it a little bit of life, if you will. So we'll need to install the React components, or not the React components, the React icons. So I'll click Control J to bring up the terminal. And inside of a new terminal, we'll type in npm I react-icons and press enter. Okay, and we can close out the terminal. And at the top, let's go ahead and start out by importing the icon first. So we'll say import, and we'll get this from React icons. And I like to use the FI icon when possible. And I want to use the book open icon to represent the logo of the book. And then inside of the return statement, we'll start with the first div, and we'll give it a class name with flex, set the items to centered, and we'll give a space on the X of 2. Inside of the next div, we'll bring in the FI book icon, and we'll give it a class name with a width of 8, a height of 8, and we'll set this color of the text to, let's make it blue 700, and then we'll close the icon, and there you see our book. And then next to the book, we'll add the 2 spans. So we'll say span study, and the other span will hold buddy. Okay, looks good. And in the first span, we'll give it a class name of text Excel. We'll set the font to bold and set the text color to neutral 900. And then the second span for buddy, we'll set the class name to text blue 700. And I think I should probably set the text size. We'll copy this. There we go. Now, do I want this space? You know what? I think what we could do is put this span inside of the other span. Hold on 1 second. Let's do it this way. Sorry, give me just a moment. There we go. That removed the little gap between it so that it's only space on the X between the icon and the text. Perfect. So we can go ahead and close out the logo. And then next, we want to work on the mobile menu. So this is going to be, of course, a little more in depth, but basically what we'll be building is a menu, a side drawer that we can toggle based on the click of this icon on the far left. So that will give us the ability to shift out the links for the routes that we'll have on that are typically on the sidebar. We'll just have it on the mobile menu. So let's go ahead and go back to our project directory, and inside of header, or excuse me, inside of the components folder, inside of header, let's add a file named mobile menu.tsx. And we can go ahead and mark this as use client because we will be using some React hooks to kind of hook into the state. And let's use the RAFCE snippet to create a export default mobile function. And we'll say, name this mobile menu, and we'll make the 2 M's capital. Now let's go back to the header. Let's import the mobile menu. And we'll replace the div with mobile menu. Click save, and you see we now have the mobile menu, so that's perfect. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and just build or bring in the icons and different hooks that we'll need in order to make this work. And then we'll kind of talk through them as we use each. So first we'll start with The icons, we know we're going to need a FI menu. We'll need the uh, FIX as well, which will help us open and close, well, which will be what we use to open and close. I think I need to, from React icons, open and close our side drawer. And we should be able, there we go. We can bring it in now. We'll click save. We'll need a few more icons, but I'll add those in later on. Let's just focus on the toggling of the side drawer. And then we'll use state to manage the state of the drawer. Within the mobile menu function, or excuse me, the mobile menu const export default, we'll add in, we need to use state first, and we'll set this to false. And this is just going to read if it is open. So we'll say is open, and then we'll say set is open. And this is saying that if there is the side drawer open or not, and the initial state of it is going to be false. Inside of the return statement, let's remove this div and we'll replace it with React fragments. And first thing that we want to do is have the menu button appear on screen. So we'll use a button, and then inside of the button, let's use a little bit of JavaScript to say if it is open, we want to show a menu. And if it is open, we want to show a X. And if it is closed, we want to show a menu. So inside of the button, we'll use a little JavaScript and we'll say is open with the question mark. And if it is open, we want to see the FIX icon that we imported. And we'll give this a class name. Actually, we'll use size for this one. We'll say size, and we'll set the size of it to 24. And we can go ahead and close it. And then we'll add the colons to represent or, meaning that if it is not open, meaning that it's closed, then we want to see the FI menu icon. We'll set the size to 24, close it, click save. Perfect. So since it is closed, we're seeing this menu icon. Now, if we change this to true, what should happen is we should see the X. And this is basically saying that it is open. So perfect. It is working. The conditional rendering is working as designed. Perfect. Okay, so with that, now I want to start caring for the actual side drawer itself and the state of it. And the way we'll do that is basically by using some JavaScript and the same conditional rendering. And the only other thing that we'll need to add is on click, which is what will control, or excuse me, we'll need to have a way to set the state so that on click, something is actually clicking and controlling the toggling of the state is open and not just me updating the statement that we passed into the use state. So we'll use this button to kind of manage that for us. So we'll say on click, that is the handler that we want to use, passing a function, and we'll say set is open, which is capturing this state. And we basically just want to change it from false to not is open, which is the inverse to make it true. So now we'll just go ahead and click save on this. And to test it out, we'll say, well, we won't worry about testing it just yet. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of styling to this button. Before I forget it, we'll give it a class name. And I want to set the Z index on this one to be 50 so that it's a little more pronounced and that it sticks out. We'll give it a padding of 2, a background color of neutral. Let's make this neutral 700 to be consistent. Set the text to white and we'll give it rounded of full so that it's like a circle around it. And there we go. And then if I hover, let's give it a shadow W of medium. There we go. Right. And now underneath the button, let's go ahead and begin to code out the side drawer. And move this down a little bit. So we'll add a div and give this a class name. And within this, we want to conditionally render. So, and we want to pass in some JavaScript. So we'll need to use temporal literals and we'll set the positioning to fix, give it a top of 0, a left of 0. The size of this or the height we want to set to full. And I'm going to set the width of it to 64. We'll add a Z index so it is more pronounced on the screen. And let's do this. Let's just go ahead and test it out just to see what we're getting. So within this, I'm going to move this down so it's a little easier to see. We'll add a $sign and the curly braces because this is where we want to add some JavaScript. So we'll say is open. If it is open, we want to transition on the X of 0. Else, we'll set transition. Transition X full. Click save, and we'll say sidebar. Oh, I may have something off here. Is open. Let me set the background color. G whites. Okay, there we go. And just to make sure it's not too big, which it shouldn't be, background. Oh, I got 2 BGs. Orange, 400. Okay. And if I close it, it doesn't transition back. Okay, so let me fix that. That should be transition, translate. I'm sorry. I put transition, it should be translate. but that didn't go as designed. There we go. Let's make sure you add that in front of translate. There we go. All right. So let me smoothen that out a little bit because that's a little tough of a toggle. So right after the Z index, let's add transform, and then we'll go transition, transform, and we'll set the duration to 300. There we go. That's much smoother. And I want to remove it from being orange. Let's make it white. Save. Okay, perfect. All right, so now let's begin to just style the side drawer or the side drawer a little bit. I want the logo at the top, and then I want to have the links at the bottom, and I think, or in the middle. And we'll also add a little overlay so that if we click on the overlay, it'll close the side drawer as well. But we'll worry about it in just a moment. Excuse me. First, let's begin with the logo. So we'll add a div, and we'll give this a class name of padding top of 8. We'll click save. And then let me just go ahead and bring in the logo so we can see what we're building. So we'll say import logo, and make sure you're importing it from /UI/logo. Then we'll bring the logo in. Now, if we toggle it, we see the study buddy there. Perfect. May need a little bit of padding there. Let's do this. Let's say border bottom. Let's make that border neutral 100. Okay. Let's go padding left of 8. Even better. And we'll go padding bottom of 7. Bring that. Yep, that's almost perfect. Having it align with this one. A little off, but it's okay. And I'll go, I think that should be good right there. All right, so now what we want to do is have our links listed here. I think I want to give this a border as well. Oh, border, right, border, neutral, 100. There we go. I like that a lot better. Okay, so now let's add the links right here. So outside of this div that is holding the logo, let's add another div with class name. Set it to flex, set the direction to column. We'll go gap on the Y of 3. We'll set the flex to 1 so that it takes up most of this viewport or most of this column. And we'll set the padding top to 4 for right now. And then let's just see what this looks like. I'll add a div with link. Let's copy it and add another link. Okay, so that's perfect. So we can add padding to the link component once we make it. But what I wanted to accomplish here was to have the links listed right here. And then what we could do is we'll shift it over. Let's just shift it over. We'll align it so that it's centered with the logo, and the styling of it will be a little more visually pleasing, if you will. So we'll do that now. So instead of hard coding our links, let's just create a reusable link and that we could pass in and change out the label and maybe the icon for the item. So inside of header.tsx, I think, you know what, this should go into the UI because I'm going to share this exact same link with the sidebar. So I think I'll add the link item in UI. So inside of components and then the UI directory, let's add a file named link item.tsx. And we can go ahead and mark this as use client. And we'll use the RAFCE snippet and just add in link item, or change it to link item with a capital L and a capital I. Click save. And then we can remove the two divs and we'll just pass in link item. And this is a shortcut way to import a component. If you just begin to type out the name of the component, the IntelliSense, if you have it installed, should eventually pick up on where this is coming from. And of course, this is coming from /UI/link. That's what we just created. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this for right now, but we're going to pass in some props to it in just a moment. Or not props. Well, yes, we're also going to pass in props. So we're going to define a label and also a icon, but we'll do that in just a moment. So I'm going to pass two link items, then click save. And if we open the side drawer, we see the link items listed there. So that's perfect. So now we'll go back to the link item component. And we want to pass in some information to it. So first, I'm going to set the type. And what we want to do is pass in props. And we're going to set the label to be string. We'll give it an icon. And it'll have a icon type. And this we'll need to import from React Icons, and see it is already recognizing that that is what this is. So I'm just going to go ahead and import it now. And the other prop we're going to pass in is a href, and this will be a string. Inside of the parameters that the link item will take, we want to pass in props, of course. We know it will get a label, a icon, which is going to be represented by icon, and we'll also pass in href. Now, what we want to accomplish with this is have the link items displayed, the different names of the routes within the project. The two we're going to start with are dashboard and learn. We're going to key or code dashboard through it for right now, and we'll come back and code learn. But I also want to distinguish the route that we're on by highlighting that route. And the way we could do it in Next.js 15 is by using use path name. So I'm going to go ahead and import that now. So we'll say import, and this is going to come from Next Navigation, but we'll just type use path name, and you can see the option is there for Next Navigation. So we'll just go ahead and import it. And then inside of the component, we'll pass a const name path name, and this is going to give us, and we want to use it to get access to use path name. Then we'll create a const name is active so that we can distinguish if it is active, then we want to pass a unique color or background or text. So we'll say is active. It's going to be equal to path name with 3 equal signs href, basically the path name matching the href. Now inside of the div, let's remove, well, excuse me, inside of the return statement, Let's remove the div, and we're going to need to use link for this component. So we'll go ahead and import link, and this is going to come from next/link, and we'll replace the div with a link. We can go ahead and close it. So we know with Next.js, anytime we pass in or create a link, we have to pass in the href. And obviously for this component, we'll need to set the href, and we're just going to set it to href. And so we can get something on screen, let's go ahead and add the icon and the label. So first I'll code out the icon. So we'll say icon, and that is the icon that we have listed there. We'll give this a class name, and we'll need to make it JavaScript because we want to conditionally render the color. So we'll say icon, we'll give it a size with a width of 5, a height of 5, and also well, that's good enough right now. And let's pass in, I have something off here. No, I think I'm good. So we'll say is inside of the curly braces and $sign. We'll say is active. If it is active, we want the text to be amber 800, or we want the text to be blue 700. Click save, and we're getting this message because we're passing the href, or we're passing the link, excuse me, but we're not passing the href. So let's just go ahead and clear that up so we can see something on screen. So we'll go back to the mobile menu, and inside of the link item, let's give it a href. And the first one will be for learn. So we'll say the href is / the route for it would be /learn. The other one will be for the dashboard, so we'll say /dashboard. And we might as well go ahead and add in a React icon. So the icon for this, and we'll need to do the label as well. So we'll just say label is going to be learn. And then the label for this is going to be dashboard. And we'll need to pass in 2 icons. We can import them now. So we'll go to the top. The first one, well, they both are going to come from, actually, we already have it here. So let's just bring in the FI database for the dashboard, and then we'll say FI book. Yeah, we'll go book open. So we'll say for the learn will be the book open. And then for the dashboard will be FI database. Click save. Okay, so we see those React icons listed here on screen, so that is perfect. And I think, let me give this some padding. Oh, that's the logo, wrong one. Okay, that looks a little better. Give it some padding there. I was gonna give it padding within the link item, but I think it probably makes more sense just to do it this way. So now we see the links or the icons. Let's test and see if the path name is working. So I'm gonna open a new browser. I'm gonna go to /dashboard or localhost 3000 /dashboard. And as you can see, we don't have a dashboard route. So let's go ahead and create one now. So inside of the main directory, we'll go into the app folder, then the main grouping, and we have dashboard, but we don't have a page.tsx for it. So let's add it now. So we'll say page.tsx inside of that dashboard, and we'll use the RAFCE snippet to create a functional component. We'll say dashboard page, click save. Okay. As you can see, we're now on the dashboard route. And if we open the side drawer, we see that the dashboard page is now a distinguished color, or the dashboard link that represents this route is a distinguished color, because our path name now matches the href, and the href is /dashboard. So let's just go ahead and create the learn route as well. So inside of the main grouping, let's add another directory named learn. And inside of learn, we'll add a page.tsx. And we'll say the RAFC snippet, call it learn page, click save. So I'll close this out for now, and I'll close out the dashboard page as well. And if we click on learn icon, we get redirected to the learn route, and the color of learn is now amber because we're on that route. So that's perfect. So now let's just add the text so the user can see the name of that route. So we'll go back to the link item and we have the icon. Underneath that icon, let's just add a span. Inside the span, we'll add the curly braces. And for this, we could just pass in label. Click save. Okay, so now we see the name of the route listed on screen. So let's begin to style that next. So we'll go back to the link and we'll add a class name. And this will have temporal literals as well. First, let's set the direction to flex, or give it flex, and then we'll set the items to centered, and we can see that. We'll give it a gap of 1. Perfect. Some padding on the X of 4 and on the Y of 3. You can't see much now, but you should see it shift. There we go. And we'll go rounded large. We'll give it transition all. We'll set the duration to 200. Text base, font, medium. Perfect. And then now what I want to do is, if it is active, I want it to be a specific color. And I think I'm going to get rid of that padding. Let's go padding on the X of 4. Yeah, that's better. Sorry about that. So now let's do if it is active. So we'll say $ curly braces. If it is active, want the background color to be blue. For this, we'll make it 100. For now, we'll set the text to amber 800 and give it a little shadow, DOW of medium. Uh-oh. See, I might have broke something, so I'm just gonna copy this for right now. Let me see that with that. And what? Let me complete it out first. And then we'll say, or if it is not active, then we want the background to be white. Yeah, there we go. Set the text to neutral 900. We'll give it a border. The border will be gray. No, make it neutral 100. On hover, we want the background to be blue 50. See what that looks like. And let's make that shadow small. Go. And we click on dashboard. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So we can close out the link item. I think the last thing I'm going to do is just add a little overlay right here so that when you click anywhere on the outside of this side drawer, it automatically closes and not just rely on the toggling of the menu button. So we'll close this. We can close the header. We can leave the layout open. We can save that, close that. Now let's go to the mobile menu. And then within this view, we can come down to the bottom. Let's just add a overlay so that once that menu or side drawer, excuse me, is open, then we have the ability to click on the overlay and that'll close the side drawer as well. So we'll say overlay. Give this a div and we'll go class name inside the div, excuse me. Say fix inset 0. We'll set the background to black 60 and we'll give it a little opacity. Opacity 30. And the trick with this one is to add an on click so that anytime this overlay is clicked, we basically want to toggle the menu state. So we technically can just double click this and put it in here if we wanted to, but we'll say on click. And we'll set this set is open to false. There we go. So let's open it. It'll help if I wrap this. So we see the background and we see that it works, but because I didn't wrap it, it is not working in the appropriate state. And the way we'll do that is JavaScript, of course, and we'll say is open. And if it is open, then we want to utilize this overlay. So we'll go open, perfect. And if we click, we can navigate without a problem. We see the routes changing, perfect. And we can close it. So now we want to care for the desktop state in the event that we have the desktop view, which is right here. We want to have that sidebar right here versus in the mobile view, we have the toggle state. So let's go ahead and work on that now. Let's see, I think best way to probably do this first would be to go to the, close this out, probably to start in the layouts. So let's go ahead and update this layout a little bit. So let's remove the children, or let's highlight, copy it, delete it, and let's wrap it in a main HTML tag and just create the main tag and paste it in. And then we'll give it a class name. And for this one, we want to set the row to span 9 rows. On large, we want the row to span 1. Let me think about this for a second. Click save there. And we'll go div class name of hidden, large devices flex, and let's set the height to full. And we'll just type in sidebar. Let me figure this layout out right quick. Hold on. Let's go large, span column. Column span 9. And here we'll go large columns span 1. And on large, we want the row to span 1. Let me see something here. Oh, it'll help if we set this. So we'll go large grid. On large devices, we want 1 row. So we'll go grid rows 1. And on large devices, we want 10 columns. Okay. And this should, okay. So this one is the sidebar. So we'll say, for this one, actually, you know what? We could wrap this in this because they're basically taking up just about the same thing. There we go. And then let's test this. Perfect. And expand out. Okay. So basically what we did is we gave our layout, main layout file, a grid layout with 10 rows on small devices, so that this is a row and then there's 9 other rows listed here. And on large devices, we only want 1 row because everything is going to be in 1 row. And then on large devices, we wanted 10 columns so that we have 1 listed here, so on and so forth. And there's an additional 8. We just don't have it highlighted so you can see it. And the sidebar within it, we just gave it a height of full, a background color of purple so you could see it. And on small devices, we want it hidden. And you see the sidebar here. And when it's small, you don't see it. Perfect. All right. So now let's go ahead and create a sidebar component so that we can see the link items displayed on screen. So inside of the components directory, we'll just create a folder named sidebar. and we'll pass in a file named sidebar.tsx. We can go ahead and mark this as use client and add the quick snippet to create a component. And we'll go ahead and import it. So in the layout, we'll go import sidebar, and we can replace this sidebar with the sidebar component that we just imported. Perfect. Sidebar is not. Oh, I got a lowercase b. There we go. Excuse me. There we go. And we can go ahead and remove the color of this. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and style the sidebar. So in the sidebar, going to need just a couple of things. First will be the icons. So we'll need to bring in the FI book, and we'll also need to bring in the FI database. And we actually can just go ahead and remove this div, and we'll replace it with our own. We'll give this a class name with a height of full, a width of full, a border to the right, and we'll set the border to neutral 100. And let's just add a sidebar to see what we get. Okay, so you can see we have the border, and we can still see sidebar there, so that's perfect. We'll remove this div. We'll add another one with a direction of flex column, and we'll give it a little padding of 2. And within that div, we want to house our logo. So let's go ahead and import it now. And we'll add another div to hold the logo because we want to give a little bit of styling for our logo section. So at the top, let's start by importing logo. And that should come from /UI/logo. And let's just go ahead and bring it on screen so we can see it. So we'll bring it or add it within the component inside the div. And you see the study buddy listed there. Lovely. Inside of this div, we'll add a class name with a padding top of 8, a border bottom. We'll set the border to neutral 200, a padding right of 4, a padding bottom of 7, and let's just click save. And there we go. And I think I would rather have neutral 100 to be consistent. Much better. Okay, so we'll come out of this div and we'll add a new div and give it a class name of padding top of 2. No, we'll make it 4, and we'll go space on the Y of 4. Here's where we want to hold our link items. So we'll go import, and remember, these are special components, reusable components that we created, and we can use these in any place throughout the project, and we will. But we'll go ahead and import link with a capital L and just click down one. That should be the link item. And we'll need 2 link items because we have 2 routes as of right now. So we'll say link item. We know we need an href. The first one is going to be slash learn. We'll need a label of learn and a icon of, this is the FI book open, and we'll close it, click save, and we see the learn icon there. And if we go to the route, we see the blue background and the amber color text, and we're on the learn route, and we see the learn page. Perfect. So now let's just add one for dashboard. So we'll just copy this link item, click paste. We'll update the href to dashboard. We'll update the label to that as well. And we'll change this icon from the FI book icon to FI database. Click save. And then perfect. We see the dashboard link item with the route and the ability to toggle in between those routes. So that's perfect. So I think the next thing I want to do is add a button to give us the ability to create a course and have it redirect the user to the individual course page. So I think we'll go ahead and focus on that in the next video in this series, which should be tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed it so far. If you do, feel free to give me a like, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.